Hey guys, and welcome to Faithwerks Designs. I'm Faith. Let's get started. Alright, so we are working on the main panel and the lining panel now. What I'm going to do is we've already cut out our outside panel. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our outside panel and use it as a template for our lining fabric. So I'm just going to kind of line it up. I want to put it as close to the top line as I possibly can because I want to make sure I get those teeth in there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Alright, and then I'm just going to take my rotary cutter and cut this out. And I don't think you can see her anymore, but I have a little helper over here. She's been very attached to Grandma. She had a little incident yesterday where she fell off a bed because she was playing and not paying attention. So she's fine. She's just been a little clingy to Grandma since her little accident. So, hanging out with Grandma. Alright, so we got that cut out. Now we're going to need to grab our Decoville light for our outside. If you're using pebble vinyl, you're going to need Decoville light. If you're using like a cotton, just whatever interfacing you use. I use the same interfacing on my lining fabric. So let me grab my Decoville light. If you're using the pebble, you're going to want to have your Decoville light about 1/4 of an inch away from all of the edges. So let's see. And I am going to use my ruler and make a line over here. Just be a little bit easier. Alright, and I'm just going to kind of freehand 1/4 of an inch around the top, and that's just going to have to do. Alright, then take this to the ironing board and go ahead and iron your Decoville light onto your pebble vinyl. Alright, so we have got our front panel all with the Decoville light on it. I'm going to grab my ribbon. Hopefully you have been working on your ribbon and getting it ready. I'm happy with how my edge coating turned out on this. So I have picked the ugly side and I put a piece of 1/2 inch double-sided tape on it. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to lay this flat for a second, and I'm going to grab my good ruler and I'm going to measure 9 1/4. I've kind of got my main panel along the lines on my mat just to kind of keep things straight for me. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler, my small ruler, and it should be about roughly 3.5 inches on each side of your ribbon. Then I'm going to put my hand down here so the ribbon can't move. And I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to take this tape off and then press it down. And if you want, you can double check and just make sure everything is like it's supposed to be. And now that I've got the double-sided tape down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and start at where I stopped my stitches. I'm going to go around here, and then back up again to where my next stitches are. So I stopped here, and I stopped here. So you're going to start here, go down, around, and then back there. Try and make your stitches match up, and that way it looks a whole lot nicer. So let's go to the sewing machine. I have got my stitch length set at a 4. I have changed my thread out to the more of the maroon looking color. I am going to try and put my needle down right where I stopped. Okay, so I've got it right there. Hopefully lined up. We'll see. And I'm also hanging on to my thread when I start sewing. That way I can pull the threads to the back. And there we go. And then I'm just sewing 1/8 of an inch, just like we did the top part. And then I stopped right where my other stitches are. Now, when I pull my threads to the back, oh, I did it. Oh, yay. All right. Don't you love it when it all works out? All right, when I pull my threads back through, it'll look like it was a continuous stitch, and that's why I was trying to tell you to like start exactly where you were when you stopped, so that way it looks like you just kept going even though you haven't. Alright, so we have got our ribbon all on, ready to go. The next thing that we're going to deal with is the Ron Weasley like address label. So it comes with this white edge, and you can either do a couple of things. You can cut off the white edge like I did. You can leave the white edge. You can edge coat the edge of this if you want to, just to make it look a little nicer. It is really up to you, whatever you want to do. I decided to just cut the white off, and then I added some double-sided tape. This is what you're going to do. We're going to take the double-sided tape off, and then making sure that it's facing the right way, I am going to center it onto my ribbon so that I have about 1/2 inch of overlap. So 1/2 inch of your ribbon should be underneath of this tag, so that when we go to sew it, the end of the ribbon, we don't want that showing. That's why we put the little tag here. And then that way, when we top stitch around this, we're kind of getting that extra and making sure that that doesn't come out. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my thread out again to the gray, and then I'm just going to kind of sew 1/8 of an inch away from the edge and sew this address label down. Alright, so now we're working on the address label. I've changed my thread out. My stitch length is a 4, and I'm just going 1/8 of an inch around the edge. And you're really going to want to take your time with this, making sure that it looks nice when you go around these corners. I'm just slowly adjusting because that is a curve, and we all love curves. It just shows up, so I'm trying to take my time with this part. And then if you haven't, pull your thread through. Hopefully you've held on to your thread. I feel like I harp on that, but it's a really good thing to do so that you can pull your thread through a lot easier. Okay, and then I just stopped where my stitches started, and when I pull my thread through, it'll look like it was a continuous stitch. So I don't know if I told you guys before, but with the ribbon I actually made a knot at the top where I finished, and with the letter I'm going to do the same, or the address label, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make a couple of knots, cut my thread, and then burn the ends. And that way I don't have to worry about anything popping off on me. Alright, almost done assembling our back panel, and now we're going to go grab the lining. Alright, so our front of our panel is all assembled and ready to go. We're going to now take our lining fabric and we're going to put it right sides to right side, and we're going to start working on the bottom of our panel first. We are going to sew around this, but we're going to have to leave ourselves a hole to turn it inside out with. And I'm going to do that on this end. You're also going to have to keep in mind that when we turn this inside out, you're going to have to be able to put your hand through this, and I'll explain that later. But you need to leave a big enough hole for yourself. And so I find that 4 inches is just about right for my hand anyway. 2. So I'm just kind of finding the center where 4 inches is going to be. And it doesn't have to be exact, guys. It really does not. I just need to make a big enough hole that I can kind of get my hand in there and turn everything inside out. So now that we've got that marked, so I've got about this much space to be able to turn it inside out and get my hand in there. The next thing we're going to have to deal with is this ribbon. So I do not want you to like fold this back and press it. We're just going to very lightly kind of push it in there, just like that, and then we're going to clip the rest of this together. When you're going to sew it and you're going to do everything, try not to like push down on it. Yeah, I think it'll be fine, but just in case, don't push down on it. We're going to take this to the sewing machine now, and we're going to stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going to go around, up and around, and then back here, making sure to back stitch when you come to these 2 marks. Alright, whenever I work with K&A vinyl, or any vinyl for that matter, I have to switch out my needle to a size 12. I find that my machine is like a heavy duty machine, and if I use any larger of a needle, when I turn it inside out, you can like see where it's perforated, and it just doesn't look good. So I've switched my needle out to a 12. I am going to put my stitch length at a 3. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way around. I made sure to hold on to my tails. I did not backstitch because I plan on sewing this a second time. I like to do a row at a 1/4 inch and then one kind of right behind it. When you do 2 lines of stitching on vinyl, it takes some of the pressure off of the stitches itself. And so I always like to do that when I'm working with vinyl. Just give an extra little something. And it kind of takes the pressure off of the stitches. So alright, now I'm going to pull my threads through, cut the tails off, and then we'll get ready to turn this inside out. Alright, so I went ahead, sewed all the way around, I turned it inside out. This is what I've got to work with once I turn it inside out. You're going to want to go around and make corners at the top and this corner really good, and the very bottom corners. Make sure that all of the corners are poked out really good. And then I kind of take my hands and kind of press down and make sure that everything kind of like goes to the edges like that. And then I clip to kind of hold that in place, because we're going to do some top stitching. Alright, we're going to leave this open. Don't mess with it. It's fine. Leave it open. Alright, I'm going to move these up a little bit, and then I'm going to get my ruler and a marking tool, and I'm going to mark up 4.5 inches. So from the bottom corners, which you probably can't see, but from the bottom corners, you're going to want to mark up 4.5 inches. This is where we're going to start and stop our top stitching. I'm just going to take my little tool that wipes off my vinyl, and I'm just going to make a little mark right there. Make sure it's something that will wipe off of your vinyl, otherwise it'll be there for forever. But I've got my 2 little marks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start top stitching all the way around, moving this out of the way. Don't top stitch this down. Move it out of the way, come all the way back here. Hang on to your threads when you start sewing, because we're going to pull them through on both spots so that we can do just like we did with the ribbon, and it'll look like one continuous top stitching. So let's go do that. We have got our top panel. I've got it with the vinyl facing up. I've got my stitch length at a 4. I've changed my thread back to a red just so that it'll kind of match the outside better. Again, you guys, you do you, whatever you want to do. Alright, I'm going to start at the mark that I made. And I'm holding on to the tail of my thread. And I'm going to pull that through. And we're just going to get push down on it and bend it, because it'll probably leave a mark there where you've done that. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm just going to sew right back down to where my other mark is. Alright, pull your threads through, burn them, and then we'll do the next step. Alright, so we are on to the magnety magnet part of our wallet. First thing you're going to do is you're going to order a specialized magnet from K&A Custom Fabrics. It comes with this really cool Weasley emblem. Hopefully you can see that. It also comes with the front and back pieces that come with it, the screws and all of that. You are also going to need some fray check, some sort of tool to be able to make holes. If you've got a cam snap like I do, you can use that. I just find like this is a whole lot easier than trying to drag out my whole cam snap. I really like this tool. It's come in handy. You could stop there. You could put some extra glue in there, whatever. I found that E6000. I'm actually going to put my magnet in, put the drops of E6000 in there, and then I'm just going to like let it sit for a couple hours. That way I make sure that those screws are not going to go anywhere. Those screws are teeny tiny, and you don't want those to pop out, because if you lose one, you're over. So this is how we're going to do this. I am going to grab my screwdriver wherever it went. Oh yeah, you're going to need a screwdriver. I'm going to grab my screwdriver and I'm going to take these screws out. And what I like to do is I have my little double-sided tape roll. Y'all are going to laugh. So I put all of these screws inside of that, like all of the pieces and everything. I put it in there because I don't want them rolling off of my table, and I don't want them like just leaving me. So I put them inside of that and then make sure that they don't go anywhere. Alright, once you have that done, we're also going to need a marking tool, by the way. Let's see. Marking tool. Check. We're going to take these apart. And then I'm going to make sure that my weasel is facing the correct way. And then right smack dab in the center where the ribbon kind of like branches out, we're going to put this Weasley's. I'm going to put it right in the center. I'm facing it towards myself so I can make sure this is right. Alright, so what you're going to do is, because on the back of this thing there are these little prongs that kind of stand up. Especially if you're using vinyl, this is going to be really helpful. Cotton, I think you're still going to be able to see them. But I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to press down really hard on it. And what that's going to do is that's going to leave me an indentation of where those little prongs are sitting. And that's what we want. Alright, I've got my marking tool ready, because once you lift this up, you're going to need to mark your marks really quick, because sometimes the pebble vinyl, you can make put a clip on the pebble vinyl, and then when you take it off, eventually like that indentation kind of poofs back out again. So I'm going to take this and pick it up, and I'll show you guys in just a second where it's really hard to see. Okay, so it made little indents like right there, right there, right there. You've got 3 of them. Now, I'm going to take my tool, and you probably should stand up when you do this because of the force of weight. You are going through, let's see, how many layers? 2 layers of vinyl, 3 layers of vinyl, and a layer of cotton. And then I pick it up and then finish the job. Okay, and so I've got all of my holes. Now I've got to do this one. And then I lift it up. It's just so many layers that I have to lift up that ribbon. Alright, now that those all fit in there, we can do kind of like a dry fit. You need a tool that's got kind of bigger holes to it, because these holes are kind of large, and you want your little spokes there to kind of go through this first ribbon so that it can kind of meet up with the back. So that's going to be really important. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to try and remember which direction this was going. Alright, I'm double checking. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to match up these holes wherever they went. Okay, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is, you see that there's 2 little, you've got a circle and then 2 little lines on each side. We're going to need to make a mark where those 2 little lines are. Okay. So right there, if you can see, there's a little mark here and a little mark there. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our seam ripper, which was also a tool that you needed. Sometimes I get going and I just forget all of the tools that I need for this. Alright, this is why I told you guys to leave enough space that your hand can kind of fit through there. Just be careful. Alright, so I've got my hand and I've tried to make it go all the way in there. I'm going to put my hand between the lining fabric and the outside fabric. You don't want your seam ripper going through your outside fabric. You just want to open up your lining. So I've got my holes there. Next thing that I'm going to do, and should have already had ready, because now I have to get my hand out. So in your set, sometimes these can be really hard to get apart. That's a good thing. It means that they're doing their job. Alright, there we go. Alright, so we've got our female end and our male end, which I forgot to put our female end in before we got rolling. Crap. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Alright. What we're going to do is we're going to match this back up again with all of our holes. We're going to put our hand back through the bottom. Okay, just want to make sure I'm putting it in right. So I've got my thumb inside of the thing. Hopefully you guys can see that. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the male end. We're going to put the feet through there. Hopefully you've made your holes big enough that it'll go through. Alright, now I've got my thumb and I'm going to hold on to all of this. And then I'm going to pull it through back up. Be careful with this, don't rip anything. We need to smash those little legs down. So I'm just pulling it up, and I've got to get my washer. Don't forget to put your washer on. So it looks like that. And then you're going to, okay, and then pull it back through. And then you can kind of take your hand and just kind of smush it a little bit more. That way you ensure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Alright, now we're going to go back to the top. We're going to take our Weasleys and put the legs in through those holes and try and get them in as best that we can, because it's got a lot of layers to go through. And so I'm just kind of putting the material around it. And I'm going to do that for all three of them. Okay, so you should see your little legs through there. Now I'm going to put those together. And with your back magnet, you should be able to see everything kind of matching up. Now, what I like to do is I like to kind of dry fit my screws and make sure that everything's lining up like it's supposed to. So I'm going to take one screw, if it will work with me, and I'm just going to kind of dry fit it in there. And if it stops turning, then I know I've got it in the right spot. Alright, so it stopped turning. I'm going to take that back out. I'm going to keep my hand nice and taut. Probably should have opened up all of my stuff beforehand, but whatever, it's fine. I am going to put a little dab of freight check in there. That's mostly for your cotton material so that it won't kind of unfray and be gross. And then I've got my E6000. You don't want to keep that open. I'm going to put a little dabble-do-ya of my E6000. And then I can clean that up at the end. Phew, you stink. Alright. I'm going to put my screw back in there. This does have to go through a lot of layers, so you might have to kind of like push down to get it in there. Alright, what am I doing next? Next screw. I'm pretty sure this one's going to go straight through, but that's alright. We're going to check it anyway. I'm going to just screw it in. Yep. Alright. I could see the hole pretty clearly, so I was pretty sure it was just going to go straight in there. Sometimes the fabric can kind of be in the way, and you can't see if you're doing what you're doing or not. Little bit of E6000. Just a little bit. Whew, you stink. Alright. Put the screw in there. And then just kind of push down until it stops turning. And then my last one, I'm having a hard time kind of seeing the screw underneath, and that's because of the fabric. But I'm going to just dry fit that screw in there just in case. Could you let go of me? That'd be great. And again, you're going to kind of have to push down. Alright. I'm going to hang on to this now, because this is our last screw and I want this to work. Alright. a little bit of freight check. A little bit of stinky E6000. Alright, now when I get done with this, I am going to lay this out on my table. I'm going to put some weight on it. I'm going to put some weight on it, and then I'm just going to let it sit for a couple hours. Let that E6000 kind of do its job, because I do not want these screws coming out later on in my project, because it'll be really frustrating to do all of this work and then have that happen. So I'm going to leave this for a couple hours, and then we're going to come back to it. Alright, so I have let my magnet dry for a couple hours, just to make sure that that glue adhered itself really well. And the way that I did it is I put screws facing down, and then I kind of put my computer on top of it, and then a weight on top of that, so that this doesn't really balance very well. So I kind of made sure that my computer was on top of it, and then the weight was kind of made the computer level, and that way you get everything to be level. I know that's weird, but that's what I had to do. Alright, now this is done. We gotta put in our bottom snap. And I should have done this before I put the lining on, but I forgot. So now we've got to put our snap onto our bottom. And your finished product should be roughly 7.5 inches wide. Okay? We're going to measure 7.5 across. And then you see how I still have my outside fabric sticking out? I haven't stuck it. I haven't took the 1/4 inch and turned it in yet. I'm going to measure from that spot 1 3/4 up. So if you're doing this later, if you're going to go ahead and do this before you put your lining on, make sure that you measure 1.5 inches up and then find the center, and that's where your magnet's going to go. But if you wait, like I did, alright, let me find my marking tool. We are going to mark 3 3/4. That is going to be your center. So right here is 3 3/4, and that'll put us dead smack in the center. If you're doing it once it's finished, your outside is finished, your center is 3 3/4. Alright, now I need to grab my magnet. And so you've got your washer. You're going to want to put your washer in the center, so that the mark that I just made, I'm putting that in that circle spot. I'm going to lay that down. And then I'm going to take my marking tool. I'm going to make those 2 marks. So hopefully you can see it. And then I'm going to grab my seam ripper. Alright, so I've got my seam ripper. I'm going to put my hand in between the outside fabric and the lining fabric. We are only going to be seam ripping through the outside fabric, and you don't need to seam rip a very big hole, just your little marks. Okay, then I'm going to take my female end of my magnet, and I'm going to place the legs inside. Okay. Alright, so that's inside there. I'm going to put my washer on. And then I'm going to take the legs and set them to the side. You can also add some tape onto the top of these so that they don't kind of scrape against your lining. I'm not super worried about it, so I'm just going to kind of leave it. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we need to finish our top stitching. So I'm going to take this. That's kind of why I had you guys do the Decoville Light about 1/4 inch shorter, so that we can go ahead and it just folds over really nicely like that. So I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to make sure that my lining is also folded over 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to take my time with this because I really want this is going to be the front of the wallet, so I really want it to look nice. And then I'm just going to take it and put some clips on it, and then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to go ahead and finish top stitching all the way around. Make sure that you start where you stopped, go all the way around, and then just try and match up your stitch marks so that they look like it's a continuous stitch all the way around. Alright, so we've got everything all clipped. I've got my stitch length at a 4. I've got red on the top, gray on the bottom because that's the gray that's there. I'm going to try and attempt to start where I stopped. Pull your threads out, burn your threads, and now we are finally going to attach the card slots and all that stuff onto our main panel. Alright, so we got all of our pieces, the main panel and everything's all done. Real quick, we're going to work on this so that we can attach it to the main panel. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to grab your tool that you were marking with, and you're going to need to grab your ruler. We're going to go ahead, before we even stick it on here, we're going to go ahead and make all of our marks. Just like we did with these, we're going to need to mark up 3 3/4 and then 3/4 on each side, because it is going to be in the way. It just is what it is. Alright, so we're going to mark our 3/4. I'm going to double check, make sure you can even see what I'm doing. Alright, so 3 3/4. And then we're going to take this and mark 3/4. Going to be red for forever. Okay. Connect your lines so that you have a box. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the back, and I'm going to kind of do this upside down. It'll be a little bit easier because of all these pockets being in the way. So I'm going to measure from the top of my card slots, this very edge. I'm going to measure 3 3/4 down. And then I'm going to measure 3/4 on this side. And then you can just kind of connect everything. And then I'm going to measure 3/4 on this side. Okay, so now we have both the front and the back. We have the marks that we need to be able to attach these to our main panel. So the first thing, hopefully you guys can see my marks, but it's basically what we've been doing when we put all these together. Alright, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our main panel with the lining facing up. We're going to grab our front part, and you're going to kind of want to line up the edge of your outside edge with the edge of your first, I don't know, what would you call this? The first of your zipper pockets, I don't know. And you're going to want to center it as best you can between the sides. There's just like 1/8 of an inch on each side in between these two. So I'm going to look at this real quick and make sure that I'm getting it centered. And then I've got 2 clips ready to go. I am going to clip these together, and then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and we're going to do just like we did with the rest of our panels to sew them together. Now, I'm going to have to straighten this out. When we get to the sewing machine, all of this is going to be in the way. But this side is the easiest side, believe it or not. Alright, when you start to sew, we're going to start here, sew around, down, and back up. You're going to need to make sure that you hold on to your threads, because we're going to need to pull those through, and we're going to need to burn them so that we have kind of like a nice edge to work with. So make sure that you hang on to your threads. Also make sure that you back stitch really good right here and when you're finishing up. So let's go do that. Alright, I'm all clipped up. We're going to be working on the front panel. I have got my stitch length at a 4. I've got gray thread on the top, red thread on the bottom because the outside, and my magnet is wanting to stick to my machine, so this is going to be fun. Alright, I'm going to hold it like this so I can kind of see what I'm doing, and I'm going to hold on to my thread when I get started. I'm going forward quite a bit because, like I said, this part, especially because it's the front of the wallet, it's going to get pulled on a lot. Alright, you guys are getting ready to see absolutely nothing. Get ready for it. Sorry. Alright, make sure that you take this and kind of pull it out of the way. You can push this back a little bit. Make sure your needle is down when you're turning everything. Alright, I'm going to cut all of my threads and do all of that, and then I'm going to show you where to put this flap, and we're getting close, guys. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. Alright guys, so we've got the front all attached, and that gives you your nice little slip pocket right there. Now we're going to work on our back panel, and we're so close, you guys. Alright, we are going to put our outside panel. I need you to find the edge of this and put it on a line on your board. Then I need you to measure down 6 inches. So my rule is about 6.5 inches. So there's 6 inches. So I found 6 inches on my board, and I want to line up both the sides so that these sides and these sides need to be in the middle, and then this needs to go along that 6-inch mark that I found. Then I'm going to grab some clips, and you can clip as many as you want, but I'm just going to put one. I'm going to really carefully start sewing right here. Make sure that you backstitch and make sure that you hang on to your thread so that you can pull it through. What we're going to do is we're going to sew down, over, and back up again, making sure that we backstitch. Let's go do that. I have got my stitch length still at a 4. I put in a bigger needle. I meant to mention that earlier when I go to do the front. I went ahead and switched out my size 12 needle with another needle. Don't ask me what size it is because I have no idea. I know that was no help whatsoever. Alright, I am going to start at the top of my card slot panel. I'm going to make sure that I hang onto my threads. I'm going to go up a little bit, making sure that my needle is down. I'm going to grab the thread out of the back so it's not getting sewn over again. I'm going to back stitch, and then I'm going to go forward and around. Okay. Now, what I meant to mention with the other one, be careful when you're turning because you've got a lot of fabric like behind your foot. Be careful that your needle is all the way down, and then go up easy because you might accidentally break a needle if you don't have a heavy enough needle in. I just wanted to let you guys know. I just thought about it. But I'm back stitching. Alright, pull your threads Well done. Good job. Alright, now we're going to make a little knot, and then we're finished. I'm going to go back through the gray a little bit. Try and get my thread away from the zipper pulls because they keep wanting to attach themselves. Can you see what I'm doing? You cannot. Okay. So I just went back through the gray on this side, and I'm just kind of making a knot. Making a smaller knot. And then what I'm going to do, if my thread will work with me, is I'm going to put my thread through between the two fabrics, and then I'm going to make it come out through the red. So my needle is not going through the gray, it's just going through the red, and I'm going to pull it through. Alright, zipper pulls, we're not helping here. Okay, now I'm going to pull a little harder so that, poop, did you hear it? Kind of like popped in there, so my knot is inside of there and I can't see it. And then you can just cut your thread, and there you go. You did a ladder stitch, close it up, and your wallet is all done. There we go. Alright, she's all done. Yay! I hope you guys like this wallet. There was a lot of love put into this thing, and lots of time trying to get this done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up, or if you want to subscribe so that you don't miss the purse assembly, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Also, if you have any questions, comments, I want to let you guys know, if you have any questions about any of our bags from now on in the future, you can always go to K&A Custom Fabrics. They are going to have our bag testers on there. So if it's in the middle of the day and you're working on a project and you're like, I don't remember or I couldn't figure it out, you can always go on the site and be able to ask questions about all of our patterns. There are also written instructions, so all of the measurements for the card slots, all of the measurements for the cutting out, everything, all of that stuff is going to be included in the written directions. There are also going to be step-by-step pictures of everything. So if you're one of those people that don't want to watch a video over and over and over again because you want to make the wallet several times, you can just purchase the written instructions, and it'll have all of the information that you need on there. So, thanks for joining us again on Faithwerks Designs. Bye guys.